For Unit 10, we're going to start looking at linear equations, and the first type of those that we're going to study are proportional relationships. You should be on page 54 in your notes packet. A proportional relationship is just when one quantity is in proportion to another quantity. That means that they will change at the same rate every time. So it makes a line. And another way that you can look at it is that it would be in the form y equals mx. Now, in this case, m represents your slope or your rate of change. So you would have an equation that might look like something like y equals 2 times x, or y equals 3/4 times x. All of these would be proportional relationships. However, if you have something that said y equals 5x and then you put plus 3 with it, the plus 3 makes it no longer a proportional relationship. On a graph, you can identify a proportional relationship because it will always be a straight line and it will always pass through the origin. If it's a straight line, but it does not run through the origin, so it does not have a point at 0, 0, it would not be a proportional relationship. In a table, you can write each pairs as a value as a ratio of x over y. And if all of those ratios are equivalent when you simplify them, then you know that that table would be in a proportional relationship. Now let's look at some examples. This says every time you earn 10 stars at Starbucks, you get a free drink. Well, let's start by just looking at what this tells us. Well, if I had 0 stars, then I would have 0 free drinks. But actually, even if I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 stars, I still would not have a free drink. I would need 10 stars before I got a free drink. And if I had 10 stars, I would get 1 free drink. The next time I would get a free drink was after 20 stars. And at that point, I would have gotten 2 free drinks. Then I would have another free drink at 30 stars, at which point I would have 3 free drinks. Now, how could I write that as an equation? Well, I know that it's going to be y equals, and my question is, remember, this is my table, so the first value would be x and the second would be y. Well, what am I doing to the x values every time to get my y values? If it were the opposite, if it was y to x, I would multiply 1 times 10, 2 times 10, 3 times 10. However, I'm asking what do I do to x to get y? Well, it would be the opposite, which would be dividing by 10. So I could write it as x divided by 10, but a better way of writing that is when we know that dividing by 10 is the same as multiplying by 1/10. If we write it like this tells me that I have a slope of 1/10. Now, when I graph this, my x values represent my stars, and my y values represent my number of free drinks. Well, we know that our stars go up to 30, so we might want to use multiples of 5. And then our free drinks only go up to 3, so we can just use multiples of 1. Well, at 0 stars, or I'm sorry, I don't know why I put a 0 there. This should be 1, 2, 3, and this would be 4. 0 is always this point right here. So if I had 0 stars, I would have 0 free drinks. If I had 10 stars, I would have 1 free drink. With 20 stars, I would have 2 free drinks. And with 30 stars, I would have 3 free drinks. So you can see if I were to connect these, this would make a straight line and it goes through the origin, which is right here. So we know that that is a proportional relationship. So we would say yes, because it's a straight line that goes through the origin. Next, you pay $25 to join Planet Fitness and $10 a month after that. Well, if you think about this in terms of rate of change and initial value, the rate of change here is 10. So we know that it's 10 times every month or 10 times X. The initial value is that you also had to pay 25 just to join. So if we put this in a table, at 0 months, I would plug in 0 for X. So I would do 10 times 0, which is 0, and then plus 25. Well, that would give me $25 because even after 0 months, I still had to pay the joining fee of $25. For 1 month, I would do 10 times 1, which is 10, and then plus 25, which would give us 35. For 2 months, I would do 10 times 2, which is 20, and then plus 25 gives us 45. For 3 months, I would do 10 times 3, which is 30, and then 30 plus 25 gives us 55. So if we put these on our graph, X represents the number of months and Y represents the total cost. So since months are only going up by ones, we can just use intervals of 1 for this. And then Y goes all the way up to 55, so we might want to use intervals of 5. Well, if I had 0 months, the cost is still 25, so I'm going to represent that with this point where X is 0 and Y is 25. 1 month, the cost is 35. For 2 months, the cost is 45. For 3 months, the cost is 55. So you can see here I would have a straight line. However, the straight line intersects the y-axis right here at 25 instead of intersecting the y-axis here at 0. Because of this, I know that this is not a proportional relationship, and I'm going to say no because it does not pass through the origin. For example 3, it says Janae took 119 selfies in 7 days. Well, I need to know how many she would take. Well, I know in 7 days she took 119. But how many in 0 days, or 2 days, or even 5 days? Well, to do this, I might want to find the unit rate. If it's 119 selfies in 7 days, then I'm going to say 119 divided by 7 to figure out how many she took each day. Well, if I do 119 divided by 7, I'm going to get 17. So that means she took 17 selfies per day. So in 0 days, she hadn't started, so she took 0 selfies. But in 2 days, if she took 17 per day, it would be 17 times 2, which is 34. In 5 days, if she took 17 each day, it would be 17 times 5, which would actually give me 85. Now, an equation to represent this is that the number of selfies equals 17 times the number of days. If we graphed this, we can use intervals of 1 on our x-axis, and then we can use intervals of 17 on our y-axis. Well, after 0 days, we know she had not taken any selfies, so we're going to have a point right here. In 2 days, she took 34 selfies. In 5 days, she took 85 selfies. And in 7 days, she took 119 selfies. So we can see that there's a straight line here and it goes through the origin. So is this a proportional relationship? Yes. And we know that that's true because this is a straight line that passes through the origin. Number 4 says that Cynthia, who is Janae's best friend, took 64 selfies in 4 days. Well, if Janae took 64 selfies in 4 days, then that means that on day 4, she had 64 selfies. So we're going to figure out how many she had on days 0, 1, and 2. Well, again, we would want to find the unit rate. So we would do 64 divided by 4, which tells us 16. This means that she took 16 selfies per day. I can represent this in an equation by doing y equals 16 times x. Well, in 0 days, she had 0 selfies. But in 1 day, she had 16 selfies. And in 2 days, she would have had 32 selfies. If I graphed this, I would come over here and I would use intervals of 1 for my x-axis and intervals of probably 16 for my y-axis. Well, in 0 days, she had 0 selfies. In 1 day, she had 16. In 2 days, 32. And in 4 days, 64. Well, we can see this is a straight line and it goes through the origin. So this would also be a proportional relationship. Now you have a question that says, who took more selfies per day? Well, we know that Janae took 17 selfies per day and Cynthia took 16 selfies per day. So this means that we know that Janae took more per day.